execution for these men in Gaza. They're accused of being outlaws or collaborating with Israel, bound, blindfolded and shot at point-blank range by Hamas fighters. Since the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas came into effect, the militant group tightened their grip over the enclave, taking aim at those they say are collaborators and rival clans. Their presence is also more visible in the streets.
The people really welcomed this deployment and came to greet us and tell us to stand by them and against thieves, even if there is only a few. But this gives a spirit of assurance among the people.
Despite Hamas saying they are there to bring stability to Gaza, images of armed fighters will not help the region's long-term peace objectives. The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said the war cannot end until Hamas gives up its weapons. The group has rejected this. But Donald Trump issued Hamas a warning if they refuse.
We have told them we want to disarm, and they will disarm. And if they don't disarm, we will disarm them. And it'll happen quickly and perhaps violently. But they will disarm. Do you understand me?
Yes. The decommissioning of weapons is one of many thorny issues. Under Trump's peace plan, Hamas will play no role whatsoever in the governance of Gaza in the future. But the militant group does see itself as part of a comprehensive Palestinian national framework.
You know, the question becomes, will Hamas give up that power? You know, the world has been holding its breath over this fragile peace between Israel and Hamas. You know, we've had months of ceasefire talks, prisoner swaps, and hostages being released, and they're still holding on to sub-hostages who are no longer with us. So the question that we have to ask today is simple but profound. Was there ever a real ceasefire to begin with? Or were we witnessing a pause between two storms, one that was always bound to return? This is a region where every agreement seems to rest on the edge of a rocket's flight path, and where diplomacy is often measured in days rather than decades. Understanding what's actually happening on the ground is essential. To unpack the truth behind this moment, I'm joined by one of the most respected analysts of Middle Eastern security and law, Adam Weinstein. He's the Deputy Director of the Middle East Program at the Quincy Institute for Responsible Statecraft, where his research focuses on security and rule of law in Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Iraq. He's also a non-resident fellow at Tadblab. I hope I said that right. A think tank and advisory firm based in Islamabad, and frequently travels throughout Pakistan to assess regional stability firsthand. His analysis has been featured in The Washington Post, The Guardian, Foreign Policy, War on the Rocks, Lawfare, and The National Interest. Adam is known for cutting through political noise and bringing clarity to some of the most complex conflicts in the world. Adam, welcome to Detroit's Morning Answer.
Thanks for having me. I'm not sure about most respected analysts, but I appreciate that.
Well, from the people whenever I have guests, I always reach out to people that I know. I've been in the political world for at least 40-something years, and I know a lot of people, and I always reach out to people when I bring guests on, and every single person that I talk to said one of the best. So there.
Well, thank you for that.
but Adam, let's do some background on this. How would you define a genuine ceasefire in the Israel Hamas conflict, and what conditions do you think should have been met and should be met for it to be real rather than this rhetorical peace that we continue to see throughout decades?
Well, I mean, sometimes the real ceasefire does start with rhetorical peace, but ideally a real ceasefire would mean both sides are committed to it and they're not trying to game it or find loopholes or excuses for why they get to break the ceasefire. And that's what we see beginning to happen. You have to remember most ceasefires throughout history actually break down relatively quickly, as do most peace deals, unless there's one side that, has clearly won the conflict. The problem with these kinds of conflicts with non-state actors is even when there's one side that's militarily much stronger, as Israel is in this case, the non-state actors are able to continue the conflict for a long time at a low cost.
Yeah, and they get the affections and of the public, because, you get people like Candace Owens and different other actors who are calling it genocide as to what you see. But which actors? Is it Israel? Is it Hamas? Is it Egypt? Is it Qatar? Qatar, or is it the U.S. who hold the real leverage over whether this ceasefire stands or collapses?
I think they all hold some leverage. I mean, Qatar has a close relationship with Hamas, and that matters for Hamas. And the United States has a super close relationship with Israel, so that matters too. I think President Trump's message to both sides was enough, and that's and his patience had been strained, and that's what motivated them to come up with some sort of agreement. But how long it will last? I mean, if you were a betting man, the good bet is that the ceasefire will break down. Then again, we're in a moment in the Middle East where all sorts of things are happening that nobody predicted. Nobody predicted that the Assad regime in Syria would fall, and that the new government would make it almost a year now, and yet it has.
That's a very valid point. I mean, as Americans, as most of us Americans, we are observers. We're not on the ground. We listen to our elected officials. I don't listen to the media. I find sources in the media that I know are trustworthy. But what changes on the ground have you observed that you think or suggest a return to open conflict? Or do you think this assassination? I think they took 20 people in the town square and just brutally assassinated them. Are there any anything that you've observed? Do you think this is going to hold, or is this going to be open back up to conflict?
Well, those are two different things. I mean, the assassinations that Hamas is doing is Hamas trying to regain control over Gaza. During the 2-year war, Hamas was focused on Israel, and so there were certain elements within Gaza that tried to challenge Hamas's authority. And now that the fighting between Israel has taken a pause, whether it lasts or doesn't last, Hamas is now turning their guns on their own opponents and trying to regain control over the Gaza Strip. That's an internal conflict between Hamas and other Palestinians. But then there's the bigger conflict between Hamas and Israel. I would hope that Israeli leaders don't want to restart the war in Gaza because I don't think it's good for Israel or the United States, and it's certainly not good for Palestinians. There should be a move to some kind of reconstruction process, and I actually think a better way to undermine Hamas is to give Palestinians in Gaza an alternative to Hamas. I mean, when there's war with Israel, Hamas is the only show in town. But if you offer Palestinians an alternative route, well, look, there can actually be reconstruction. You don't have to go back to this 2-year war. But Hamas is going to increasingly be sidelined from that. Then there might be a different future that can be imagined for Palestinians. But if Israel decides to restart the war in Gaza, well, then that actually puts Hamas in a position of strength.
I always like to understand stuff, and I know you have the background in rule of law and security, but what's the legal difference between a ceasefire and a pause in hostility? Why does language matter in these instances?
Well, ceasefire is like a contract. It's an agreement between two sides, and in this case, both Hamas and the Israelis agreed to it. A pause is often unilateral. It's one side that has decided to pause. There were various pauses during this conflict where the Israelis would have a pause for a few days, sometimes under U.S. pressure, but it wasn't in agreement. I mean, none of these are really legally enforceable agreements. We like to think about them like they're law, but they're really political agreements. And it almost like a gentleman's agreement, and they're only as strong as both the willingness of both sides to commit to them.
Yeah, I'm thinking about when Trump, his first term, he created this Abraham Accords. How do you think the Abraham Accord nations view this moment, and do you think it tests does it test the durability of this normalization between Israel and Arab states?
Well, I think the fact that there were so many Muslim countries, not just Arab countries, but also Muslim countries like Pakistan and others that aren't, or Indonesia, I mean, that were supportive of this deal is something. It's actually quite significant. It means that in the broader Muslim world, there's acceptance of Israel, which was not always the case. I think most Arab countries and most Muslim countries have accepted Israel as a reality. And the message to Israel is, well, if you can make some kind of peace with the Palestinians, we'll embrace you. And the message to the Palestinian leadership, including Hamas, is, look, you have to come up with some sort of compromise with the Israelis because they're a political reality and they're not just going to vanish. So I think that's significant. For the Abraham Accord countries and the immediate neighbors of Israel, like Egypt, like Jordan, the last 2 years has been incredibly stressful for them. They don't want this kind of conflict.
Yeah.
They have to side with the Palestinians, but it's been an incredible pain for them.
Well, I'm getting ready to get a up close and personal view of this. I won't say when, but I am headed to Israel because I want to see what's going on over there. I want to see it with my own eyes. I want to hear it with my own ears and get a different and better perspective of what's actually happening over there. And so I really cannot wait to get over there because this is what I want to see. I want to know what's happening on the civilian side of this conflict. In your view, has the humanitarian access improved, or has it worsened since the supposed ceasefire began?
I think it's improved, but it's, I'm also not on the ground in Gaza, so I don't know. I'm hearing things secondhand, just like you. But my sense is that it's improved, but there's still more improvement that's needed. And look, remember, this conflict doesn't only exist in Gaza. There's all kinds of issues in the West Bank as well. And there was a recent case where an Israeli settler bludgeoned a Palestinian older woman in the West Bank. And, the settlers are a huge liability for Israel, and they're quite extreme in many cases. So I'd encourage you not just to go to Israel, but to go to the West Bank if you can manage it and hear different perspectives so you don't just hear one side. Yeah. But in terms of humanitarian access, I mean, it's clear that it's better. But there's probably more to be done.
Yeah. You have a lot of experience in this. I mean, let's talk about this. Drawing from your experience in not just Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Iraq, what lessons or parallels do you think help us understand what might happen next in, like as you just said, not just Gaza, but the West Bank?
Well, I mean, the worst case scenario is that now that the Gaza conflict has paused, there might be some extreme elements in the Israeli government and also extreme elements on the Palestinian side that try to engage in conflict in the West Bank, which would actually be a much more brutal conflict and a more complex one because there's a significant Israeli settler population there. I mean, again, I don't want to be a pessimist.
Yeah.
If I had to make a bet, I would say that the ceasefire breaks down and we do return to some kind of conflict because that's a safe bet. But I do think there's a moment here.
Hello? Did we lose him? Adam? I think we lost him.
Yes.
Oh, there you go.
I think I had a technical issue.
That's
I think
okay.
there's a moment here in which the Trump administration has an opportunity to really engage in leadership here and let the Israelis and the Palestinians know that we're at an existential moment here. And you have one opportunity to really come to some kind of settlement. And a ceasefire is not enough. There's going to have to be a political roadmap and a political process. Yeah. And the Trump administration can do that. What would be a mistake is if the Trump administration threw their hands up and said, well, we got a ceasefire and that's enough and we're going to move on to other issues and forget about this and then allow things to fester and then we return to conflict.
Well,
there's a really brief window here.
Yeah, and you heard President Trump. I don't think I've ever heard a president say we will disarm them. Do you think that means that the United States military will get involved? Or is he saying they're just going to get out of the way and allow Israel and Bibi Netanyahu to go in and just completely and end the war?
Well, I don't think he wants U.S. troops on the ground in Gaza. He often uses the word we. I mean, that's kind of how he talks.
Yeah.
But I think what he probably means is that he would get out of the way and allow the Israelis to do that.
Is that the right? Do you think if this continues and Hamas just doesn't turn over their arms like part of the peace plan says, do you think that's going to be the ultimate end game as it relates to this war between Israel and Hamas?
Potentially. That's why I think there's a high risk of the ceasefire breaking down.
Oh my God! I mean, and that's a scary proposition. But we brought all these nation states together Egypt, and we've done this before, though, right? We've done this portion of trying to bring players outside of Israel and Palestine to broker peace. What's different this time?
I think what's different this time is that there's been the complete destruction of Gaza, and so there might be some changed attitudes on the part of Hamas and certainly Palestinian civilians. They don't want to return to that. And I think the other difference is that you have broad Arab state buy-in to some kind of settlement. I mean, there's broad support to that. And, the other difference is that President Trump's style is different. Past presidents were very technocratic. They were very diplomatic. President Trump's neither of those things, but he is willing to engage with big ideas and big changes. He's not interested in negotiating very small details. He wants a big solution. I think it might be a Lenin quote, actually, but that, there's sometimes decades pass and nothing happens, but then there's some years where decades happen. That's a terrible
I know the quote you're talking about,
version
though.
of the quote.
Yeah.
Yeah.
but you hear from our elected officials in our media, Trump just wants to put a Trump hotel there. That's his end game. That's what he. I mean, can you believe the gall for the media and they're looking at an end game that says Trump benefits from this? What does that say about our side, our media, and our elected officials who praise Trump in some regards, and I mean begrudgingly, but what does it say about them?
I mean, I don't think Trump is going to put a hotel in Gaza anytime soon. It would be a bad investment. But I mean, there may come a time when foreign investors put hotels in Gaza, and that would be a good thing. I think the hotel, Trump released some video about that a year and a half ago, and he releases those things on Twitter, and then the media grabbed hold of it. That's a distraction. It's not even worth talking about.
Yeah.
I think the real focus here is Trump does want to be seen as a peacemaker, at least in this case. Yeah. And I think he's highly motivated to secure some kind of agreement. Yeah. That's long term, and I hope he stays focused. Yeah. I mean, I think the real risk is that he doesn't stay focused.
Yeah.
And I think if he doesn't stay focused and he doesn't push both sides to move towards a political process, then it will be a foregone conclusion. Yeah. A ceasefire is not enough. A ceasefire gives you a window to solve the bigger drivers of a conflict. A ceasefire is not an end state.
Yeah, that makes sense. Do you think we'll ever see a two-state solution? I know the UK, they're looking to come out and say that Palestine is a nation. Do you think that will happen in our lifetime?
I didn't think, like I said, going back to earlier, I didn't think that Bashar Assad would hop on a plane and fly to Moscow, and that a former Al-Qaeda leader would become the reformed president of Syria. So there's all kinds of things that happen that I don't think are going to happen. I think people are very bad at predictions. Yeah. What I would say is that I still believe that the two-state solution is probably the best chance at some kind of peace for Israelis and Palestinians. I haven't heard another solution that's better.
All right. Adam Weinstein, Deputy Director of the Middle East Program at the Quincy Institute for Responsible Statecraft. Thanks so much for joining us here today on Detroit's Morning Answer. I learned a few things today.
Thanks for having me.
All right. That's Adam Weinstein. I learned a few things today, Paul. I just, as a student of the Bible too, I think I look at this and I do think that there will be a solution at some point in time. Will the rest of us like it? Probably not. I'm sorry for blowing through that those commercials. We can make it up on the top of the next hour. But it's interesting. Let me read off some of the coalition groups. We had the Arab League, 1945. We had the Arab Peace Initiative in 2002. The Cairo, Doha, Riyadh axis in the 2020s. We had the Gulf Cooperation Council in 1981, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Bahrain, Kuwait, Oman. So we've had a few of these groups coming together to try to bring peace to the Middle East. What I just want to know what that stickler is. What is it? Is it because they want to see the destruction of Israel, and that's it, and they don't care from the river to the sea, or what? I mean, what is it? I want to know. That should have been a question. You're listening to Detroit's Morning Answer. I can't even say this next name of our next guest, but he's running for Dearborn mayor. Paul, get the enunciation of his name because I don't want to butcher it. We'll be right back.